We don't stay because we love. And not even because we're afraid to leave. We stay when we stop believing that we can live differently. And that's the scariest thing of all. I stood at the door. The suitcase was almost packed. But in the morning, it was gone. And everything I didn't say will remain inside me forever. You think you'll still have a chance. But sometimes the morning takes it away forever. One click and you're with us together until we hit our first 1,000. She stood by the door, one hand on her suitcase. He didn't even look up. By morning, he was gone. We're working hard to reach our first 1,000 subscribers. Every click matters more than you think. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Don't miss what really matters. She stood by the door with a suitcase that wouldn't close. Not a new suitcase for a fresh start, but an old one, the kind you grab when you just need to get out. The house smelled of microwaved pizza and cologne that she'd always hated. He sat on the couch, channel surfing. Sports news, then some comedy show, then silence. He didn't even turn around when he heard her jacket zipper. Where are you going? She held her breath. Her fingers trembled as she grabbed her keys. To Ashley's. Just for a bit. I need to think. He snorted. Just be honest if you're bailing. Don't put on a show, okay? A show. That's what he always said. When she asked him not to raise his voice. When she said she was tired of being alone even when he was right there. Don't start. It's all just a show. And she really was tired of being part of someone else's performance. There was no audience, no tickets either. But the roles were clearly assigned. He was the man who knew everything. She was the woman who always whined. That night she stayed. She sat on the bed without undressing. He fell asleep on the couch with the TV on and a half-empty beer can in his hand. She listened to him snore. As if that sound drowned out everything she never said out loud. She couldn't sleep. Her heart pounded against the pillow like it wanted to escape before she did. At 4:58 a.m. she woke up. It was quiet, too quiet. She walked over to the couch. He lay on his back, eyes slightly open, his chest not moving. She touched his hand, cold. They met like many couples do, by chance, without any particular expectations. She was vibrant back then. Not confident, but alive. She smiled like she had little lights under her skin. She loved silly comedies and danced barefoot in the kitchen. Back then, yes, back then she still had dreams. He was calm, confident, reliable. The kind who holds doors, gives advice, takes responsibility. She wanted exactly that, stability. He gave her that, almost. The first few months everything was beautiful. Smiles, trips, conversations until deep into the night. He knew how to talk, knew when to pull her close, when to kiss her forehead. But then, his tone got a little harsher. His hands, a little colder. And the silence between them began to grow. At first it was small things. She told him she wanted to change jobs. He smirked. You're already doing fine. Why would you want to risk it? Then she suggested visiting her parents. He said he was tired. That family was overrated. She went alone, and didn't tell them she was living with him. She didn't want to hear, "Are you sure?" They moved into a house where everything was his way, from furniture arrangement to the water temperature in the shower. He often forgot what her favorite tea was. But he remembered how red sweaters didn't look good on her, and advised her not to wear them. This isn't abuse. He's just caring, she thought. Gradually she stopped listening to music. Then, writing poetry. Then, dreaming. Even her friends started pulling away. He didn't forbid them. He just said they were stupid, or damaged. Over time she stopped telling them how she was living. Over time she stopped telling herself that too. And yet, sometimes, something would flare up inside her. This isn't right. This isn't me. I want to leave. She even started writing notes to herself. What would I do if I wasn't afraid? She'd reread them at night, sitting in the bathroom. At first she cried. Then, just stared at the wall. Every time she tried to talk, he would say, "Here we go again. You always make everything so dramatic." And she would go silent. Because if everything was her fault, then leaving would be a mistake too. A year passed like this. Then another. And another. She used to wake up feeling light. Now, with anxiety. She used to want him to come home. Now, she wanted him to stay away longer. She became a master of pretense. In front of friends, in front of him, in front of herself. But one morning, she realized she couldn't anymore. She didn't know where she would go, where she would live, what she would live on. But she knew one thing. If she stayed even one more week, she would disappear. Not physically, but for real. And then she got out the suitcase and started packing things into it. Not her favorite things, not necessary things, just whatever came to hand. Because leaving, it's not about being ready. It's about desperation. She touched his shoulder. Hey, her voice cracked. Josh. He didn't answer. His chest wasn't rising. He lay there like always, slightly hunched, with his arm behind his head. Only, his gaze was glassy. Unbearably calm. She touched his cheek, ice cold. His hand, stone cold. His lips, gray. Josh? Louder. Hey, Josh. She shook him. Once. Twice. Nothing. No, let me sleep. No irritated. What are you yelling about? Just silence. Everything inside her stirred like a swarm of bees. Her heart pounded so loud she could hear it in her ears. Phone. Where's the phone? It was charging in the kitchen. She ran there barefoot, bumping into furniture, stumbling. Dialed 911. He's not breathing. He's cold. Damn it, he's dead. Do you understand? I don't know. Please, hurry. The operator spoke calmly, methodically. Asked for the address. Said, stay on the line. Said, you're not alone. But she was alone. For the first time really. No longer in a relationship. Not yet free. Just, inside shock. 5 minutes. Then, sirens. Ambulance. Police. First one EMT came over, checked for a pulse. Then the second. Then a look. Emotionless, dry, tired. He's gone. Probably 5 to 6 hours ago. Heart attack. Could have been anything. She sat on the step, wrapped in a blanket, not remembering who gave it to her. He was dead. And in that moment, there was no scream. No hysteria. It was empty. Like someone had opened a door in her chest, and everything drained out. She didn't cry. Not when the neighbors came over. Not when the police officer asked questions. Not when they covered the body with a sheet. She looked at him, and only one thing echoed in her head. I was going to leave. I almost left. I didn't make it in time. Everything inside her turned upside down. There was pain, yes. But not the kind she was prepared for. Not from someone dying, but from not knowing exactly who she was mourning. Love? Habit? Fear? The person she once wanted? Or the one she lived with? And then came the second feeling. The one that sits deep and burns stronger than grief. Guilt. What if I had left? Maybe he wouldn't have died? Did I drive him to this? Maybe he knew I wanted to leave. Maybe that's what killed him. This is what started destroying her from the inside. Not death as a fact, but the unanswered question. She replayed the moment over and over, where she said, I need to think, where he snorted, don't make a show, where he went to the couch and she stayed in the bedroom, where she said nothing out loud. And the more she thought about it, the more she turned her guilt into proof. I stayed because I was a coward. And he died because I stayed. In the morning, when they took the body away and the house was empty, she didn't know where to go. She barely had any of her own things. Phone was dead. Her shoulders ached. She looked at the empty couch, at the remote he loved to hold, and thought, I didn't want him to die. I just wanted him to hear me. Just once. But he didn't hear her. Now, he definitely won't. This wasn't weakness. And it wasn't love. She didn't stay because she was afraid of being alone. And not even because she hoped for a miracle. She stayed because the human brain is wired to endure the familiar, even when it's destructive. Because change is scarier than suffering. In psychology, this is called learned helplessness. When you try over and over to change something, you talk, cry, stay silent, scream, and nothing changes. You stop believing you have any choice at all. You can physically leave, but inside, you no longer believe it will make any difference. And then a person stays. Not because they want to, but because they don't believe they deserve anything else. The second mistake is cognitive hope distortion. False hope is one of the most powerful drugs. She didn't leave because every time she found a reason to stay, now isn't the time. He seems softer. He hasn't yelled in 2 days. Maybe he's changing. The brain chooses to focus on exceptions, not patterns. It remembers, yesterday he brought me coffee. And erases. but a week ago he threw a glass against the wall. The third trap is emotional debt. He wasn't always like this. He used to be good. I can't just erase everything. This isn't debt. This is an illusion of morality in a one-sided relationship. She kept giving, even when everything was depleted. And most importantly, fear of being a bad person. To leave means to abandon. To abandon means to be selfish. And that means being someone nobody loves. Her brain, her culture, her memories, everything insisted, be patient. Be understanding. People change. It's not that bad. What if this is how it's supposed to be? What if loneliness is worse than guilt? What if he really will change when she leaves? And again, she stayed. Because inside her was a voice. You've almost made it. Hang in there a little longer. He'll see. He'll understand. He'll go back to who he was. But he didn't. He didn't change. He died. And now all she has left is the question, if I had left, would I be living differently now? Or would I be suffering just the same, but with someone else? The brain hates incompleteness. It will return to that moment again and again. It will say, you almost took that step. Why didn't you? That's why she didn't scream. Didn't cry. Didn't call her family. Didn't post on social media, he's gone. Because deep down she knew. She had left long ago. Just not with her feet. But with her thoughts, hopes, soul. She just hadn't realized that this was the real death, the one that happens before the physical one. When someone is next to you, but no longer with you. When you're living, but without yourself. What if she had left? Not then, not the night before, earlier, a year ago, or two, when she first realized something in her was going out. What if she hadn't stayed for the chance that he would change, but had stayed true to herself? She would be living in a studio apartment where everything wasn't perfect. Where the kettle was old, where it was drafty by the window, where at night you could hear the neighbors fighting. But it would be her space. Small, but alive. She would have friends she laughs with, not because she has to, but because it's genuinely funny. She would listen to that same music again, not so someone could judge her taste, but because those songs know her better than he ever did. In the evenings she would cook simple food for herself, because she's allowed to eat what she loves, not what doesn't smell bad to him. She would still miss him sometimes. Yes, sometimes she would ask herself, maybe I was too harsh? Maybe he would have changed? But somewhere deep down she would know, she did something she had never done before, chose herself. She would write lists of wishes. And even if not all came true, every completed item would be proof that she exists not as someone's shadow, but as a person. And then, maybe, after some time, she would meet someone. Not perfect, but a person next to whom it's not scary to speak. Not scary to be silent. Who doesn't call her dramatic, but listens. Just listens. But this is an alternative. This is the branch that didn't happen. Because she stayed. Because he died. Because life doesn't give you the option to press undo. Now she lives in a house where every morning is like an echo. Things sit in their places. The smell of his shirt is still in the closet. The TV still doesn't turn itself off. And she doesn't touch the remote. Sometimes she goes to the supermarket and suddenly catches herself thinking, I need to get his favorite coffee. And then, silence inside. She doesn't tell anyone that she almost left. That she almost got out. That she almost saved herself. Because that's not something you talk about. That's something you live with. For a long time. Quietly, without posts, without signs, almost. She whispers this when she looks at the old suitcase. It still sits in the closet, empty. Sometimes we don't take that step not because we can't, but because we're afraid it will get even worse afterward. But there's the pain of silence. And there's the pain of movement. One corrodes, the other heals, and only you decide which one you live in.